What if the heroes of the DC universe were dropped into the world of Marvel? Which villains would they end up fighting? Would they even stand a chance? I'm about to cover a handful of the most popular and prolific DC heroes, the primary JL roster, including Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and more, and then break down who their new rogues gallery would be, as well as their arch-nemesis, and what their conflicts might look like. I promise there are some picks in here that will genuinely surprise you, but absolutely fit once you think about it. In these matchups, we're assuming that the heroes of Marvel are no longer present, so no Spider-Man or Hulk will drop in to help. These DC characters are completely on their own to acclimate to this new world and its villains, and if you think you've got better matchups, or think I should have picked different heroes, tell me why down in the comments. Unless you're gonna suggest something stupid like Ambush Bug versus Deadpool. Actually, that one's not bad. Whatever, let's get it. Clark Kent, originally born as Kal-El on the planet Krypton, is Earth's greatest hero, Superman. His alien biology, radiated by our yellow sun, has gifted him with impossible strength, speed, invincibility, flight, and above all, an unending love and kindness for his fellow man. Clark is a small-town kid with a big heart, and his best stories aren't about testing his superpowers, but his unshakable morality. Superman's villains are other aliens, gods, and egotists, who all believe themselves above the rest of humanity, and Clark's job is to stop them from looking down on us little people by tapping them on the shoulder and saying, "Hey buddy, eyes up here." In the world of Marvel, there would be countless villains looking to take down Big Blue. My first thought is Kingpin, to fill a role similar to Lex Luthor, but honestly, other than being rich and bald, these two don't overlap that much. Kingpin would be content with keeping his criminal empire in the shadows and not drawing Superman's attention over a petty pissing contest. For that, you need a villain with much more of a god complex. So my first choice is the first mutant, Apocalypse. En-Sabanur, aka Apocalypse, is a celestial-enhanced mutant warlord from ancient Egypt. With shape-shifting regeneration and strength to rival the Hulk, he's a walking world ender, which is probably where the name comes from. Apocalypse believes only the strong deserve to live. He has a radical Darwinian philosophy and seeks to cause devastation around the world to force humanity to evolve and rise above it. He's Superman's perfect foil. Both are superhuman titans, but where Clark champions hope, Apocalypse worships survival of the fittest. And while their combat would be awesome, seeing how Apocalypse is one of the few characters out there with more powers than Superman, the real meat of their battles would be in the hearts and minds of the world. Apocalypse essentially wants everyone to think like Lex Luthor. If I can achieve it, I deserve to rule over others. Clark would have to fight against the mutants and heralds who choose to join his Homo Superior supremacy movement, all while trying to show them that the strong should protect the weak, not prey upon them. Apocalypse's ego makes him a great recurring threat, but not quite arch-nemesis material. His focus on mutants limits the personal stakes between the two. For a better rivalry, we'll need to think bigger. Much, much bigger. Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds, is Marvel's ultimate cosmic threat, a godlike entity who devours entire planets to survive. Towering over cities with the power cosmic that dwarfs most heroes, he's Superman's greatest physical threat in the Marvel world, taking the place of Darkseid in his rogues gallery. Unlike Apocalypse's mutant crusade, Galactus's hunger threatens all of life everywhere as a living force of nature, forcing Clark to protect the planet instead of just her people. In fact, this opens up an incredible potential for rivalry. What if Galactus was the force that destroyed Krypton? Jor-El, unable to convince the High Council that the World Eater was coming, only little Kal-El was able to escape before the planet was devoured by Galactus. This would play perfectly on Clark's morality. He would feel anger, despair, and a sense of vengeance towards Galactus, but at the same time, he knows he can't destroy the Cosmic Titan because Galactus is a necessary constant in the universe. Without him, reality begins to unravel. So Clark would have to choose the high road and find a way to redirect him instead of trying to eliminate him. And because Galactus's indifference mirrors Lex Luthor's arrogance, but on a universal scale, maybe Clark's mission would be a little different. Maybe he would try to find a way to make this god actually care about the worlds he feeds upon. If there's anyone who could do it, It's Superman. But for a much less easily swayed villain and the true Marvel nemesis of Superman, we need to look for a bigger ego in a much smaller body. Kang the Conqueror is a ruthless tyrant from the 31st century who travels through time so frequently he's essentially become chronologically immortal. He is always attempting to invade the present to put a stop to the heroes who shape the flow of time in ways that could be disadvantageous for him. Kang uses incredible technology, nearly indistinguishable from magic, to effortlessly best heroes of the modern day. And so, do I think he has what it takes to be Superman's Marvel nemesis? No. Just like the MCU, I'm scrapping the idea, and we are moving forward with the much more interesting Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom is Marvel's evil armored genius, Latveria's ruler, a sorcerer scientist with tech rivaling Tony Stark and magic matching Doctor Strange. He alone deserves to be Superman's true nemesis, a tyrant whose god complex dwarfs even apocalypses. I genuinely think the only person in Marvel who can match Lex Luthor's hater status for Superman is Doom with his hatred for Reed Richards. And in a world without the Fantastic Four, I can see Superman being the one who damaged Doom's pride, saving him from his faulty dimensional gateway machine as a college student, and ever since then, he's had a ceaseless drive to show the genius of Doom is greater than the unearned power of the Kryptonian menace. In combat, Doom's vibranium armor, force fields, magic blasts, and countless complex plans would make him a genuine nuisance for Superman, and Doom would definitely be the one to discover, or perhaps synthesize, kryptonite for the first time. Dr. Doom is Superman's ideal Marvel arch-nemesis because he combines Lex Luthor's intellect and ego with a personal, human-driven vendetta that elevates their conflict beyond the physical battles. Unlike Apocalypse's mutant crusade or Galactus' cosmic indifference, Doom's obsession with proving his superiority is rooted in his flawed humanity, pride, envy, and a need for control. This mirrors Clark's adopted human heart, creating a philosophical clash and a genuine question for Clark to consider. Is Doom right? Would the Earth be better under his rule, like Latveria? Is there something to his self-proclaimed right to rule? But, speaking of rulers of nations, Arthur Curry, Aquaman, is the half-human, half-Atlantean king of Atlantis, wielding super strength, speed, and a durability from a body tempered by the watery depths. Along with a trident that can pierce gods, he commands sea life telepathically and rules the oceans with a human heart. Arthur's best stories balance his royal duties with his surface world ties, facing tyrants like Ocean Master or Black Manta. In Marvel's universe, he clashed with villains who challenge his kingdom or exploit the seas to threaten the above world. And even though people used to love to clown on him, Arthur is a real powerhouse, strong enough to tussle with heroes like Wonder Woman or Martian Manhunter. So Marvel could definitely have hunters, monsters, and rival kings itching to test it. First up, have you ever read status? Now my next pick is a deeper cut villain, but in the same way that Aquaman is cool now, maybe it's time for this nobody villain to get a glow up. Harvey Elder, the Mole Man, is Marvel's subterranean tyrant, ruling moloids and monsters from his underground empire. He has seismic tech and an army of critters. He's quirky but dangerous. Against Aquaman, Mole Man would target Atlantis' ocean floor, his tunneling machines threatening the kingdom's foundations. And Atlanteans, who only ever get threats from the above world, would be thrown completely for a loop. Ultimately, this one is a turf war. Pun fully intended, by the way. Two rival underworld kingdoms battling for real estate. Mole Man is a fun recurring villain. I think they would fight a lot, but he's sort of small scale, and that doesn't really make him Aquaman's arch enemy. More like a pesky neighbor. I think Aquaman's greatest enemy is gonna have to be the most obvious one. I said this world has none of the Marvel heroes, but Namor the Submariner has spent much of his history as an anti-hero and a villain, and how could I not pit these two Atlantean kings up against each other? Now, if what I said just confused you, you can blame the movies. The MCU tweaked Namor a lot, calling him Namor from Talokan, but comics Namor is the king of Atlantis. Arrogant, super strong, and able to fly due to his mutation, the wings on his ankles. If Aquaman is born in the world of Marvel, Namor would be his rival, the one he would need to challenge for the throne of Atlantis in place of Ocean Master. he'd be Arthur's arch-nemesis, a mirror reflecting his dual heritage but twisted by pride. And their fight would also be a battle for the hearts of the Atlanteans. Arthur represents peace with the surface world, while Namor would want to stroke the flames of colonialism and invade. Namor, who hates humanity for their actions and how they rejected him, would scorn Arthur's human side, projecting his own self-hatred onto him. There's potential for some really juicy conflict here. Moving on real quick, and I mean really quick, we have The Flash. Barry Allen, the Scarlet Speedster, the fastest man alive, is powered by the Speed Force. With lightning reflexes, phasing, and time travel tricks, Barry is a CSI nerd turned cosmic-level hero. His stories toe the line between street-level crime and multiversal spanning stakes, facing speedsters like Reverse Flash or schemers like Captain Cold. In Marvel's world, Barry's new rogues would need to test his velocity and his wits, but unlike in DC, there aren't a ton of speedster villains for him to clash with. Quicksilver is just nowhere near fast enough to be a challenge for Barry, and I'm not going to bring in nobodies like Speed Demon or the Wizard, so instead I wanted to sample some characters that are more like the rogues. Weird, tricky powers that interact in interesting ways with the Speed Force, and force Barry to put his scientific mind to the test. Up top, I want to give an honorable mention to Spider-Man villain, The Spot. His body of portals could mess with Barry's momentum, and if he becomes a super-dimensional being like it seems he'll be in Beyond the Spider-Verse, if that movie ever comes out, then I think he could really challenge Barry. But my next picks are definitely better. Quentin Beck, Mysterio, is a master of illusions, a tech-savvy showman with holographic traps and mind-bending gadgets who's always trying to use his tricks to make money and garner fame. Against Flash, he would create fake cities, phantom enemies, or mazes full of pretend civilians in trouble, all to slow Barry down while he pulls off the perfect crime. I can just see Barry moving to phase through a wall that ends up being illusory, only for Mysterio to trigger a gas trap while he's confused. Classic Beck. Mysterio's no speedster, but his schemes would test Barry's perception, forcing him to rely on his instincts over eyesight. And Barry's CSI smarts would be crucial in unraveling Quentin's tech, vibrating through drones or shorting out projectors. Quentin would love taunting Barry, his ego always bringing him back to try again and again, broadcasting riddles or threats to make him look foolish. I think these two would have a great cat and mouse dynamic, but Beck's lack of personal stakes keeps him from nemesis status. More like a puzzle that Barry gets to solve every once in a while, which is his favorite pastime. For someone who would actually weigh on Barry in more ways than one is the master of a fundamental force, graviton. Franklin Hall is a scientist-turned-god with the power to crush cities or pin foes down to the ground with a thought. A lot like the Flash, his power is so overwhelming because it's so simple. He can push and pull, but really, really hard. And that makes him super dangerous to Barry. Super speed tends to get a little daunted when you're running past a black hole or your feet are lifted right off the ground. Graviton might not be a match for Barry's speed, obviously, but his powers counter the Speed Force really well. They would make Barry have to find workarounds to his force fields and outrun his gravitational tides. I can picture Graviton's god complex causing him to crush an entire skyscraper, and Barry having to race through and save every single person before it's flattened in an instant. And you know, the best Flash stories are for math nerds who love to tell you what a picosecond is and how photons are both a particle and a wave. So seeing those two bend the laws of the universe to take each other down would hit like crazy. Graviton is definitely a strong contender, but he's not what I'm looking for in a true arch enemy. It's really hard to replace Eobard Thawne for how personal he is to Barry and how his powers are a perfect mirror. But I think I came close to Reverse Flash. How do you find something's reverse? Easy. You make it negative. Martin Lee is Mr. Negative, a dual-natured crime lord and Spider-Man villain who wields a dark energy that corrupts and controls everything it touches. I'm speaking specifically about the version from the Insomniac Spider-Man game. Lee was a victim of Norman Osborn's experimentation that transformed his body and caused him to accidentally kill his own parents. I can see Osborn's experiments hoping to replicate the Flash's powers in this version, accidentally creating a phantom shadow of the Speed Force. Lee could make for Flash's arch-nemesis, a shadow to Barry's light, hell-bent on revenge and terror. His powers counter Barry's speed, coating streets in negative energy to sap up his momentum. And every time Barry tries to get close, his mind is pulled into a shadow world filled with countless enemies and obstacles. Barry would definitely stumble onto Lee through his CSI work first, and then end up challenging him later as the Flash, only to have the tragedy of his mother's death pulled to the surface of his mind and rendering him useless while Mr. Negative escapes. And yet, Lee is a tragic figure who runs a charity by day. Flash would definitely want to try and redeem him, literally and metaphorically battling the darkness inside of him. Yo, did you know this video is actually a sequel? I made the inverse too, Marvel heroes versus DC villains. Definitely check that out if you're enjoying this one. I don't know, maybe drop a like or subscribe or something. I'll be making another sequel soon, talking about more Marvel heroes like Sentry and Daredevil, so maybe join my channel membership to see videos early, get exclusive content, and access to my Discord. These are just ideas off the top of my head. I'm totally spitballing here. Not like I rely on how well this channel does as a source of income to support my livelihood or anything. Oh shit, I was in the middle of a video, wasn't I? Flying in next is the greatest of all the Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan. Hal is a cocky test pilot wielding a power ring fueled by his endless will, creating hard-light constructs of anything he can imagine. Tanks, jets, giant fists. Hal battles cosmic threats with swagger and old-school determination. His stories mix space epics with personal resolve, facing foes like Sinestro, Star Sapphire, or the Manhunters. When building out a gallery of villains for him from the world of Marvel, we need to consider his strengths and weaknesses. Green Lantern rings are extremely powerful space-based tech, and lanterns usually spend their time patrolling the universe looking for threats from planet to planet, so no street-level foes like Doc Ock or Bullseye. Instead, we need powerful enemies that challenge him conceptually, test his willpower through the manipulation of his other emotions, and I'm not talking about fear. My first pick fits the hole in his heart left by Carol Ferris. Amora the Enchantress is an Asgardian sorceress wielding mind control illusions and a bottomless magical arsenal. Against Green Lantern, she would challenge Hal's willpower with spells that twist reality, or let's be real here, just straight up seduce him. That's her entire MO, and Hal's cockiness combined with his legendary status and incredible power would make him a prime target in Amora's mind. She would want his ring and the power it holds, pulling the strings of his heart to get it. I can see a worst-case scenario where she manipulates his fear and love to shape Hal into a puppeteered version of Parallax, his villain alter ego when he lost his mind and destroyed Oa, but this time focused on conquering Asgard. I think Amora's first encounter with Hal would definitely be the worst, and every subsequent time he would know what's up and how to keep his cool. But there would always be a tiny little part of him at the back of his mind who would want to come crawling back to her. A terrible possibility that can only happen in his lowest moment. On a completely different note, I think Hal needs an enemy totally devoid of emotion as well, and nothing fits better there than Ultron. A rogue AI with an indestructible body, Ultron seeks humanity's extinction through adaptability and unending armies of drones. His constant evolving tech would challenge the power of Green Lantern and force Hal to get really creative with the functionalities of his ring, generating EMP constructs or trying to hack the drone networks and overwrite Ultron's control. The conflict would have an ideological angle, pitting Ultron's cold logic against Hal's human grit. The stories would be, like all great Green Lantern stories, about the indomitable human spirit overcoming the cold indifference of the uncaring universe, personified by the unfeeling red stare of Ultron's machine eyes. And while you do lose out on Hank Pym and his relationship with Ultron, since there is no Ant-Man in this version of Marvel Universe, I think that really it opens up Ultron to be more of a cosmic threat instead of one focused specifically on Earth, which plays to GL's strengths as an interstellar space cop. And for my final pick, I think Green Lantern's greatest foes would be the planetary invasion force of the Skrulls. Skrulls have near-perfect mimicry, copying the appearance, memories, and abilities of anyone they want. They infiltrate planets by kidnapping and replacing their people slowly, until their secret invasion is complete. Then they reveal themselves and overthrow the whole world in one fell swoop. Skrulls are the perfect enemy for GL because they prey on his one greatest weakness: fear. By design, a Skrull invasion sows fear and distrust among entire populations. Imagine Hal is cleaning up some unrelated mess on an alien world only to discover the body of a Skrull amidst the wreckage. Immediately there are 1,000 questions. Is this the only one? How many people of this world have already been replaced? If I save that civilian over there, will they turn into a Skrull and stab me while my guard is down? Is this even an invasion at all? Would sounding the alarm cause a political incident and spark conflict with the Skrull homeworld? And because Skrulls can copy the powers of enhanced beings, they have countless different powers that they can throw at Hal, really testing the versatility of his ring, all while his willpower is sapped by the fear of just how many more Skrulls are out there waiting in the shadows. Knowing how hard-headed Hal is, he would definitely end up sparking an interplanetary incident. That's because he's just not as good with diffusing conflict as our next hero. Diana of Themyscira is an Amazonian princess forged by the gods, Wonder Woman. Superhumanly strong and fast, she's decked out with holy weapons also forged by the gods. A sword and shield for slaying monsters, indestructible bracelets, and her iconic lasso of truth. Diana is fully equipped for defense, offense, and diplomacy. Her stories blend mythic heroism with compassion, and she often faces off against gods like Ares, or tricky, superpowered fighters like Cheetah. A lot of Diana's stories are about understanding and challenging the injustices of the world, her temperament ebbing and flowing like the waves on the Themysciran shore to match whatever situation she may find herself in. You call Batman if you want to solve a mystery, and Superman if you want to move a mountain, but you call Wonder Woman if you want to stop a war. That means her adversaries in the world of Marvel are going to be powerful leaders of nations and invading forces. She would definitely clash with Namor more than a few times, and because he's the simp supreme and there's no Susan Storm in this world, I can see him developing a creepy one-sided fascination with Diana, but they wouldn't end up being real recurring enemies. For Wonder Woman's first Marvel rogue, I'm going with Hela, Asgardian goddess of death. She wields dark, necromantic magics and fights with storms of blades generated from nothing. Hela makes for a perfect dichotomy against Diana's dedication to protecting and preserving life. In a world without Thor, I can see the Norse gods coming to Wonder Woman asking for help to defend Asgard from Hela during the Odin sleep. Then they would owe the Greek gods a favor, so she would be compelled by Hera and Zeus to comply. And of course, Diana would need to round up her own forces, recruiting the Valkyries and leading them into battle against unwavering swarms of the undead. Honestly, this would be one of the coolest battles to watch play out, Wonder Woman challenging death itself, deflecting Hela's blades with her bracelets, and using the lasso to learn the secret to putting down the death goddess for good, and dealing with the ripples that causes throughout the pantheons in the wake of their battle. But at the end of the day, Hela is primarily focused on Asgard, and as such, wouldn't be a primary antagonist for Diana. For a much more frequently occurring foe whose focus is squarely pinned on Earth, we have Magneto, the mutant revolutionary with the incredible power of electromagnetism. Magneto is a mutant supremacist and supreme leader of the island nation of Krakoa, always scheming for a way to overthrow Homo sapiens as the dominant force of humanity on the planet. In a world without Professor X or the X-Men, mutant kind have no positive influence, no example to strive towards, and no one to fight for them either. Mutants in this world would have a much harder time and face much more rampant discrimination, a global injustice I think Wonder Woman would absolutely abhor. And in her attempts to stand up for mutant kind, she would definitely end up coming to blows with Magneto's terrorism. He's strong enough to toss skyscrapers at her and twist her sword and shield into scrap, and Diana would even need to ditch her bracelets anytime she faced him, a sort of analog for willingly experiencing hardship to better understand the downtrodden. But ultimately, I think Diana would be able to quell the tensions between Krakoa and the human world. But Eric might end up as a casualty in that conflict. As for Wonder Woman's greatest nemesis, I can't think of anyone better to pit up against the paragon of truth than the god of lies and mischief. That's right, Loki. Loki is, at his core, an insecure, spurned child with a desperate need to fuel his ego, who does so by stealing power, then demanding the respect and worship of his new subjects. Everything about him is a projection. He's lying to everyone he interacts with, but most frequently he lies to himself, and it ends up as everyone else's problem. Wonder Woman stands in direct opposition to all of that. She is honest and earnest, while Loki is cunning and underhanded. I imagine the first time they meet wouldn't be on the battlefield, but during diplomatic relations with Asgard, Diana catching onto his schemes before they can take place, unraveling his plans and lighting a fire under Loki that turns into an endless grudge against her. From there, Loki would make it his personal mission to discredit Diana in the minds and hearts of as many people as possible, using his illusions to ruin her reputation amongst the Greek pantheon and sow chaos. It would be up to Diana's incorruptible spirit to figure out and shed light on his scheming every time, while we're always left hoping that truth will prevail in the end. But speaking of the end, I know this is the one you've all been waiting for. It's finally time to talk about The Dark Knight. Batman, Bruce Wayne, is the billionaire by day, vigilante by night that stalks the streets of Gotham City and part-times as founding member of the Justice League. A peak human trained in every martial art on the planet, he outsmarts geniuses and gods with preparation, a plethora of gadgets, and an iron will. His stories blend street-level crime with psychological depth, usually exploring the unique types of crazy plaguing the criminals that prey on Gotham's underworld. There are plenty of gangsters and mob members in his rogues gallery: Black Mask, Two-Face, Penguin, eco-terrorists like Poison Ivy and Ra's al Ghul, and regular old terrorists like the Joker. In the world of Marvel, Batman would protect New York instead of Gotham, and there he'll find no shortage of assassins and crime lords to challenge him. The thing about Batman is that he primarily works in a single city, but is more than equipped to take on threats from other parts of the globe when needed. I think he would definitely clash with large corporations like AIM and Roxxon Energy, and I can definitely see him clashing with Dr. Doom at least once while needing to do recon in Latveria. That said, we're going to keep my 3 picks on the street level. To start out with, I want to give an honorable mention to Bullseye. Ben Poindexter would definitely develop a grudge against Batman. His ruthless disregard for human life shut down very quickly and efficiently every time they cross paths. But Bullseye wouldn't be a personal villain for Bruce the same way he is for Daredevil for a few reasons. First of all, Bruce is far better at protecting his secret identity, so Poindexter will never get to learn who Batman is for the opportunity to engage in his favorite pastime, girlfriend murder. Secondly, Bullseye is a troll. He loves to rile you up as he kills innocent people. Batman is typically far more level-headed than Daredevil. Ben just wouldn't find him that fun to play with. That said, I do think Bruce would have major beef with the man hiring Poindexter, the Kingpin. Wilson Fisk is more than just New York's crime lord, he's the mayor, wielding both brute strength and political clout. His shadow empire would be a very long-term project for Batman to dismantle, putting his detective skills to use in order to connect all the murders and shell corporations back to Fisk. And because there's no Commissioner Gordon in Marvel's New York, it's an extremely uphill battle for Bruce to prove Fisk's guilt, to the public and to the few members of the city government that haven't been bought off yet. A lot of his time would be wrapped up in protecting witnesses from Fisk's assassins, all while Kingpin manipulates the legal code to slip out of trouble time and time again. The mayor would frame Batman as a ruthless criminal, undermining him with media spin and sending the police after him. Ultimately, Fisk would end up being Batman's first real victory in this world. Until the Kingpin is toppled, he'll never make any progress cleaning up the streets. Of course, when he's finally locked away, Fisk will continue to pull strings to send assassins after Batman, which brings me to my next pick. Taskmaster, real name Tony Masters, is an assassin with photographic reflexes, capable of copying any fighting style. Against Batman, he can mirror each and every one of Bruce's martial arts, and his intense preparation means he'd have a direct counter for everything in the utility belt too. The two would be a completely even match in a physical altercation, save for one detail. Taskmaster is always going for the kill, while Batman fights non-lethally. Combine that with the fact that he's likely going to ambush Batman in the middle of one of his patrols, and will probably get the first few hits in. This isn't a fight I see Bruce winning on his first go, and he'd likely need to devise an escape and go tend to his wounds. It would boil down to Batman's need to track the tracker. He'd have to flip the tables and devise a trap for Taskmaster, planting traps and using them to subdue him. But once he does, which I'm confident he could, there would definitely be an inkling in the back of his mind about how somewhere out there is someone who can completely wipe him off the map if he gets the upper hand. And I think that would be the gateway in for my final and favorite pick for a Batman villain. The Venom symbiote is a parasitic alien being that bonds to a host and transforms their body and mind, juicing up their physical strength and reflexes while chipping away at their inhibitions and bolstering their confidence and aggressiveness. It's essentially an allegory for steroid use, which is exactly why the symbiote would be so tempting for Bruce. Accidentally bonding with it during a chance encounter one night, Bruce would probably realize how much more powerful the new black suit makes him, able to hit harder, move faster, and fight much longer without growing tired. The increased reflexes and extending tendrils would help him save more lives and protect more people. But Bruce is very in touch with his mental state and would quickly notice the effects on his personality and mood. I also don't think it would take him very long to figure out the symbiote's weaknesses to sound and fire. He would be able to remove it probably within a week or two of first bonding to it. But afterwards, it would lie in wait, stored deep within the Batcave. The power it grants is too great for Batman to just discard it. It would stay there, tempting him until he's forced to use it. Not unlike how he keeps the Hellbat armor, which also chips away at his lifespan, and he only keeps it for special occasions. On one particular, very bad day when everything comes crashing down for Bruce, Kingpin takes a plea deal and is released from prison. Bruce is attacked by multiple assassins simultaneously, Bullseye, Taskmaster, and several others nearly killing him. He just barely escapes to make it back to the Batcave, and with only moments before he bleeds out, he makes a rash decision and opens the container holding the symbiote. What would follow would be New York's darkest night, as true ruthless vengeance is rained down by a venomized Batman upon the criminals who terrorized the innocent for far too long, and are finally meeting brutal justice. Stay frosty.